What's going on, y'all? Today we're going to be diving into a versus battle from the popular manga series Jujutsu Kaisen. I will be covering the main character in Sukuna's vessel Yuji Itadori versus his teammate Megumi Fushigoro. This video will go over both of them in their current manga forms as of chapter 171. And thus this video will contain manga spoilers, so if you care about that, you have been warned. So the first thing that is important to go over now is how both of these characters scale. I'll start with Megumi, as he's the less appreciated and more downplayed of the two. The first thing about Megumi is that he's incredibly underrated in his strength, and this is probably since his teammate Yuji is much more known for his raw power and is consistently emphasized for Yuji. Whereas Megumi is much more discreet when it comes to his showings of power. When he's clashing hand to hand with Kamo, who is amped by flowing red scale, Megumi describes this amplification this gives as both of his speed and power are on another level from him before. This, however, is just a small showing compared to what Megumi displays later. Megumi, while on a mission with Yuji and Nobara in the Origin of Obedience arc, is matched up against a replica of the Curse Energy Womb originally seen at the detention facility. However, Megumi says that compared to the one at the detention facility is much stronger, and the original Curse Womb was already capable of paralyzing both start of series Megumi and Yuji, as well as ragdolling Yuji. Megumi initially is able to survive Curse Energy Blast from the Curse, and then is able to avoid a hit from it using one of his 10 Shadows Con. After this, Megumi is knocked out. While he is out, he recalls a conversation he had with Gojo. In this conversation, Gojo says blatantly that Megumi has higher skills and potentials than Yuji, which is insane, and you'll see why when we talk about Yuji's skill and potential later. Gojo then explains that Megumi simply isn't drawing out his max potential due to his mindset. Gojo then gives the analogy of how himself and Yuji are always outgoing and literally swing for the fences shown in the baseball game, whereas Megumi is more reserved and chose to do a sacrifice bunt. He then references Megumi's ace in the hole, which is later shown in the manga and is basically a suicide move, and tells Megumi there is a difference between dying and then winning and dying. Megumi then wakes up, and after a few more recollections of being told that he's wasted potential and nearly summoning his ace in the hole, he instead takes Gojo's advice and tries to fight to win. After doing this, he is able to open his domain for the first time, the Chimera Shadow Garden. After this domain shows, it can use dozens of frogs like Shinigami to latch onto the opponent and hold them down. Megumi then proceeds to straight up box up the Curse Womb, and then after getting hit with the Curse Energy Beam, he is relative to being used a Shadow Double. He then shows he can summon multiple of one Shinigami in the domain by using 2 Nues, and then also shows he can fully submerge his body in shadow and attack his opponents from then by finishing off the Curse Womb with Con. This domain is later confirmed to be a 120% increase. However, this isn't even Megumi's most impressive feat. Later in the Shibuya incident, when Maki and the head of the Zenin family, Nabito and Nanami, were all about to be killed by the special grade curse Dagon inside of his domain, Megumi was able to use his domain to clash with Dagon's and disable his deadly instant hit. This is impressive, as earlier in the manga when Gojo explains domains to Yuji, he said there are 3 bases of how domains will interact in the curse energy: compatibility and refinement. Megumi's domain is not complete, and this is less refined than Dagon's, and the bases of 2 domains are water and shadow, which have no compatibility like Jogo and Hanami's elements are described to have. Therefore, Megumi must have even greater curse energy than Dagon's to make up the difference between the 2. Megumi, while exhausted, then has a brief exchange with the zombie Toji, who blatantly overwhelms Megumi in terms of all physical stats, even confirming that he was on top power would still be adequate. However, Megumi is still able to use several Shinigami to put up a fight despite being exhausted. So that pretty well establishes Megumi's power at vaguely greater than Dagon's, who can defeat extremely high level grade 1 sorcerers like Nanami and Nabito. However, he is significantly weaker than Zabuto. Now we can go into Yuji, who has much simpler feats to go over. Yuji, after learning how to flow curse energy properly, could swap hands with Todo and Hanami, as well as harm Hanami. This is shown to be impressive when Hanami pointed out to be highly durable multiple times and confirmed as more durable than Jogo. To compare Yuji and Megumi is actually quite simple. They directly fight alongside each other during the Shibuya incident against Awasaka, and both are confirmed to be going all out as they wanted to waste no time, and then both say that they are holding nothing back. In this fight, while they are able to fight side by side and both react to Awasaka, Megumi does slightly better. He is able to avoid hits Yuji gets hit by and avoids damage more consistently. So as of this fight, considering Megumi didn't even use his domain, he would be slightly stronger. Unfortunately for Megumi, Yuji grows exponentially. Yuji during this fight with Mahito was initially comparable to Mahito at the start of the fight. As he gets grazed by his attacks from him, he was not capable of catching up to Mahito immediately during their chase. With Nobara's help, Yuji then gets a super upper hand on Mahito, forcing him to retreat. This then leads to Mahito landing idle transfiguration on Nobara, which causes a significant damage to her head. Yuji is completely stripped of his will to fight due to him indirectly causing harm to so many people throughout the Shibuya incident. Mahito notices this and capitalizes on the situation by landing a black flash on Yuji and beating him while he was completely defenseless. During the beatdown, Yuji is shown coughing up blood after he takes a shot to the gut, which is commonly caused by eternal bleeding from popped blood vessels. Things like this, both IRL and in the series, as seen with the comments about blood users, can cause serious issues like weaknesses, nausea, and extreme cases, death. Then when Mahito is about to kill Yuji, Todo arrives to save Yuji. Todo then proceeds to give Yuji a pep talk to give him the will to fight once again. After this, Yuji joins his fight against Mahito, and Mahito proceeds to gauge Yuji, Todo, and his own soul HP. He reads Yuji at 10%, Todo at 100%, and his own at 40%. Now it is important to establish why soul HP very likely correlates to his person's power and curse energy. So the soul is explained by Mahito to be something that comes before the body and is integral to the structure of it. This is best shown by idle transfiguration, morphing the body just by the soul shape. So if your soul is very damaged, like with Yuji, it would lead to damaging of the body, which was even shown previously with internal bleeding. On top of this, Mahito also says that the soul creates emotion and curse energy derived from emotion and fear and regret and anger. So significant soul damage would affect both Yuji's curse energy output and physical body. So now that this is established that his soul HP does not correlate to the power, just go into this knowing Yuji is at 10% of his max power within this fight. Yuji and Todo then proceed to contend with his Mahito and outright beat him down using Boogie Woogie. And this leads to Mahito to try to use a domain expansion. Todo mostly defends this with a simple domain, but is still required to bisect his own hand. Mahito then lands a black flash on Todo, and this is what finally lets him fully grasp the true essence of his soul. Mahito then uses this to evolve into his true form using instant spirit body of the distorted killing, and Yuji is left to face him alone. This form of Mahito is immediately stated by Yuji to be different from any transfiguration before. Yuji then engaged with Mahito. While he is able to contend with Mahito, he is still clearly inferior and is soon pushed back. While being beaten down, Yuji confirms Mahito has become completely different than before, which is likely in reference to his power due to the context of the combat and him making this statement while being overwhelmed. This power increases is also consistent with Mahito understanding his soul better, which, as explained earlier, the soul correlated to the power as well as the extra chapters, calling this a 200% increase. Yuji later goes on to be able to defeat this Mahito with Black Flash and the aid of Todo's distraction. The important takeaway here is 10% Yuji is able to contend with the stronger Mahito than the one start of the fight 100% Yuji was struggling with. Now for why Yuji showed such crazy growth, and this might be surprising to some, but this isn't actually inconsistent at all. Even back in the very early episodes and chapters when Yuji is training to learn to use curse energy with Gojo, it is stated that Yuji is a cut above the rest at hand-to-hand, and this is after literally zero formal jujutsu training. Yuji then learns how to use basic curse energy in under a day in an unorthodox way. Yuji's growth is even further demonstrated in the Goodwill event. Yuji in this event is initially overwhelmed by Todo to the point where one punch from him throws him across the forest even when blocked, whereas later he can take gut punches from Todo and stay standing in the same fight with Todo. Yuji is told one time how to fix his divergent fist and then completely fixes it. After this, he goes on to land a Black Flash after a brief explanation and then sets the new record for Black Flashes, all with no real teaching about his technique. So this rapid growth that Yuji had against Mahito is not anything out of the ordinary for Yuji. This means that Yuji got at least 10 times greater in power based on these fights alone. Yuji then has several fights after this, which unlikely grew in all of his, as in Yuji is known for his growth explained previously. Therefore, base to base at the beginning of Shibuya, Yuji and Megumi are about equal, with Megumi slightly stronger. Then Yuji gets 10 times stronger, whereas Megumi's domain is only 120%. Now to cover both of their abilities and how this might change the outcome. Yuji's only real ability is Black Flash, which amps up his strikes so much that they could one-shot Mahito, whereas before they were harmless. The ability does, however, require great focus to land and really won't help in a fight like this where he is already stronger than his opponent. Megumi, on the other hand, has several abilities. First off, his domain, which is said to have a 20% increase and lets him make several Shinigami of the same type. The issue with this is that Megumi Shinigami are confirmed multiple times to be just his own curse energies, so all of his Shinigami should be weaker than he is, meaning Yuji would have no issue handling them. This leaves only his domain, which has never been shown to hold down somebody of Yuji's level, and since Megumi still does not have a complete domain, nothing stops Yuji from leaving the domain. Megumi actually voices this as a concern for using his domain in the recent manga chapters, so Megumi's abilities will likely be a little of help. Anyway, that's pretty much the end of the video and how all the scaling goes. So Yuji would pretty much be the winner. There could be arguments for Megumi winning, but I just don't see any good ones. But that pretty much wraps it up. Make sure to sub and make sure to comment down below who do y'all think would win and why do y'all think they will win. But I'm gonna head out. Peace.